Well, hello everyone and welcome to Chef Shelley's Kitchen. So today I have kind of a Southern favorite, and that seems to be a trend, right? A lot of what I make is Southern. You know, I have this little saying that I'm a Northern girl with Southern ways. I was born in the North, but both of my parents are from the South, and so I really have learned to cook in a Southern way. And this is actually a dish today, chicken and dumplings, that my dad is actually the master of. Truth be known, and I know I've said this on a few occasions, he's really the one who's taught me how to cook. And this is just one of those dishes that he is just amazing. And so there are different variations to this. I'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to obviously take this in a couple of settings, probably 3 takes, because we actually need to add the dumplings at a later time. But I'll talk a little bit about that. But my niece Siobhan, so I'm giving a shout out to you, young lady. And she asked early on when I started this whole online cooking show, Aunt Shelley, can you please make the chicken and dumplings? So finally, here are the chicken and dumplings. Now what's kind of unique here is that I am going to make them in the crock pot, and probably you're wondering why in the world are you doing and how are you doing chicken and dumplings in a crock pot? As many of you all know, this is kind of one of my standbys. You may or may not be able to see this, but it's early in the morning. So it's about 9:15 a.m. Eastern time. And I'm doing it early because I want the chicken primarily to cook almost all day. So let me just talk a little bit about what we're going to add to it. And we'll put the initial ingredients in, and then we'll let it cook over a period of hours. I'll come back, kind of show you the texture of how the chicken should look when it's ready. Then we'll add the dumplings, and then we'll take a look at the final product. So I have here cut up some chicken boneless breasts. And I use boneless breasts. Again, you can use anything you want. This is where the variation comes in. If you prefer, my dad, for example, he loves to put in, you know, just everything with the bones, the legs, everything. You know, kind of, it used to be way back where chicken and dumplings was primarily like chicken feet. And so those in the South remember that very well. And I personally like the chicken breast because, again, this is about delicious, healthy, and simple, right? The breast is definitely a leaner portion of the chicken. So that's why I tend to use it. But you can use any part of the chicken you want. Just recognize if you're going to do it the way I will, it's probably going to tear apart, which is a good thing. But you're going to have the bones in there. I have one of my favorite uncles. His name is Ernest, Uncle Ernest. I named him Choo Choo when I was a little girl. And this is one of his favorite things, so I like to make this for him. So Carol, make sure you tell Choo Choo that I mentioned him in the video. So let's go on and get started. Again, I actually turned this on already. I have, as you all can see, not a gigantic crock pot, but really kind of like a mid-sized crock pot. And I've already filled this up halfway with water. Essentially, this is going to be your juice, and I'm going to add some more water. I have some here after I put all the ingredients in there. But what I'm going to go on and add to it now is I'm going to go on and add the chicken breast. So you can see me just kind of plopping that in there. And what I've done is I've basically kind of cut up 2 very large pieces of chicken breast. Again, you can add it how many ever. This usually is at least 2 to 3 servings for my husband and I a piece. So it's pretty, you know, filling. The other thing I'm going to add to it, and this is for my husband's friend Tony. You and I love onions. So again, something that someone normally does not add to dumplings, but I do. Onions just add a nice little taste to it, and it really kind of physically fades into the whole soup portion of it, if you will. So we're just going to take the onions, and notice that I've basically just kind of sliced them. So it's just sliced onions like this. They're going to tear apart. So I've taken a half of an onion, sliced it, and I'll put it in there. The other thing I'm going to put in now is about a teaspoon of canola oil, just a little, and maybe not even quite a teaspoon. And then here's another secret weapon a lot of people don't use. I like using it because it does add an extra little taste. I like the texture that it gives the dumplings, and I think you're going to agree when you see the finished product. And so this is just cream of chicken. This is a 98% fat-free. Again, one of the things you have to be mindful of is the sodium. I always tell you all, listen to your physician. They have some with low sodium, so all kinds of options out there. So we're going to just pour that in here, and basically I'm going to add just one more ingredient for now, but then we're just going to let this cook over hours. And I have my crock pot turned up on high. So got that going there, okay? And I can tell that that's already put me up to about 3/4 of the crock pot. So I am gonna add a little bit more, just almost full, not too full, because what's gonna happen is it's going to evaporate anyway once you start cooking it. And it looks really delicious. I'll just kind of do a little, I'm hoping you can see that. Looks really good. You've got the onions floating on top. The only other thing I'm going to add now is actually some black pepper. I don't put my salt, or as you all know, I like using the Weiler's chicken powder. I don't put that in now because something about a crock pot, it absorbs the salt. And so I always put this on last. And so I'm gonna actually, just with that, put the lid on and go about doing whatever else I have to do, because it's just the start of the day. One thing that I will bring up, and I had, again, another dear friend of my husband, Angela, brought this really important point up. And so I figured if she had the suggestion, that someone else probably had the idea as well. So you're going to find a distinction. If I'm making something like a banana, not banana pudding, well, banana pudding is an example. I haven't made that one for you guys yet, but a sweet potato pudding or cornbread, you'll know that I use these little chafe containers where I'll put the salt, the sugar. It's measured out. It's very specific. What you'll find is I don't always do that, and there's a reason for that. Some dishes really are seasoned based on your taste. So that's when you're gonna see, I'm just gonna have the good old-fashioned containers out like this, because there's no pre-measured amount. You're going to have to season it to what you like. I don't care for that much salt, so I don't use very much salt, but there's not a prescribed amount, where some recipes there are. And when it is, I'll tell you very specifically, add a teaspoon, a tablespoon, or what have you. So when I do dishes like this, it's really going to be based on taste. And I would say always start out with less, and then you taste it and you can always add more. So that's all for now. We're going to let this do its thing, as they would say, and then we're going to come back. And when we come back, we're going to add one of my favorites. My dad discovered this. He used to make his own homemade dumplings, and then we found this Annie's old-fashioned flat dumplings. I love it. No fat, no cholesterol, no salt. 140 calories for 4 pieces of the dumpling. So just a really great alternative. Okay, so with that, let's let it do its thing, and then we'll come back and add the dumplings. All right, so we've had the chicken with the onions in the crock pot now for 4 hours, and you can cook it all day long, but I would say for my crock pot, it takes at least 4 hours. Sometimes if I've, I've gone to work 8 hours later. But basically what I want to show you is kind of the texture of what the chicken should be looking like. And particularly if you're doing a breast. Now mine has, this is how I know that it's just about done. You're going to get get it such that it actually tears apart really nicely. So you can see, let me move this out of the way, where I can just basically pull it apart. I'm not really cutting it. So you want to basically do that with the chicken. And that's what, you know, extends how much chicken you have. So as you can see, I'm just taking the fork. It's just that tender because it still has some time to cook. You just want to take all the chicken. I've already done that with some of them, but just you're digging in, just making sure that your pieces are broken up nicely, okay? So as I said, I've done some of this already, and then some of it just broke apart, but it's that tender, okay? So make sure the chicken is falling apart, like you see there. And then when you're at that point, now it's time to add, we've done this to all the chicken, now it's time to add the dumplings and our seasoning. So again, just breaking them up, and look at those onions, how nicely. Tony, look at those onions that we love. Just for you. Okay, see, I can give Tony a shout out because he took the time to give me some comments, okay? So maybe some of you will start giving me some comments so I can do a shout out for you. Now notice I do have quite a bit of juice in here, if you will. It's about 3/4 full, and you want that because when we start putting the dumplings in there, it's gonna absorb some of the juice. So as I mentioned before, I like using the Annie's dumplings, and basically they come in these like little sheets like this, and you just tear them, and basically you're just dropping them in. Just try not to drop them in on each other. I'm gonna put in quite a few. So you're just kind of not wanting to pile them on one another. They just tear off just like that. It's 3 to a sheet. So far I've put in 6, and I'm gonna do a lot of dumplings because it is chicken and dumplings, but you know, the dumplings kind of curl up, they shrivel up a little bit, but they're so delicious. Just gonna put in my dumplings as such. So last time I made dumplings, I ran out of the chicken and dumplings. I ran out of some of the dumplings, and so my husband and I had to fight over the dumplings. We had to stretch it. We had way more chicken than we had dumplings. So I'm gonna make sure we put in a nice helping of dumplings this go round. So Siobhan, you can see it, and you just wanna move it around a little bit, make sure they're not kind of all sticking to one another. That's the idea. And I think I'm gonna actually put in a few more dumplings, and then we're gonna add our seasoning to that. So this is just again one of those nice things that when I talk about simple, you're not having to roll the dough. I used to do that. My dad, again, taught me how to make homemade dumplings, but why make homemade dumplings when you can just drop these in there? So I think this is going to be my last one. I think I've got enough dumplings now to go around. It'll be nice, so my husband and I won't have to fight over the dumplings. Okay, now what you want to do is, as I mentioned before, with some recipes, I may have a chafe container where I'll put the seasoning. This is not one of those recipes because it really is based on taste. I added some pepper in earlier, if you remember. So we're just gonna now add lots of pepper. Just make sure it's covered in pepper because again, it soaks it up, and it's gonna have to be on taste anyway. We had not put any salt in earlier, so I'm going to just kind of not put too much. Again, you need to think about what's good for you and put less instead of more. And then you can always add some. And then my little secret recipe, it adds a little extra something, the wireless chicken powder. I'm just gonna sprinkle just a little bit on it, as so. Again, I don't measure it out and say a tablespoon, a teaspoon, because it's really based on your taste, okay? So you should see the pepper really nicely in here. And I mean, this is really looking totally delicious. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to actually stop the clip, and we're going to let this cook now a little longer, and then I'll come back one final time to show you. We'll put it in a clear bowl so you can just see how it progressed. So we're going to put the lid back on it. Again, if you're doing this after you've come home from work, and it's all cooked, wonderful, you just add the dumplings at that time. You don't have to do it at the 4 hours. I just wanted you to know that's about how long it should take, but crock pot, you can keep something in all day long. It doesn't really overcook as long as you have enough liquids in there. So let's let the dumplings do its thing. We'll come back and look at the final product. Okay, so our dumplings now, if you remember, we added them. They were frozen, had come just directly out of the freezer. And now I've had them in the crock pot for about 45 minutes or so. You probably can see now, maybe with the camera, and of course it's going to be difficult for me to tilt it, but before you couldn't see as much bubbling up. So I'm going to do like a little tilt. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to take a picture of it as well. First of all, it smells so good. That's one of the reasons why I enjoy cooking so much, because it makes your house smell fantastic. Just the other day I was cooking some chili in the crock pot and walked in the house after being out for a while, and just the aroma was wonderful. So I'm gonna put a little bit in a bowl because I want you to really kind of see the texture, and you can probably see it as I'm lifting it up. So Siobhan, eat your heart out. These dumplings are just absolutely fantastic. Again, lots of dumplings, so I didn't have so many the last time, but this time now I can say at least we've got plenty of dumplings, and they're big pieces of chicken breast. Again, as I mentioned, you can use whatever kind of chicken you want. I'm only going to just put a little bit here. I just want to, so you can at least see it in the camera, just kind of how this turns out. So totally delicious, nutritious, simple, smells so good. And hey, why don't we go on and take a little taste? I know it's going to be hot, so I just pray that I don't burn my tongue, okay? So let's take a taste. Yum, yum, yum. And it is very hot. Tastes great. Again, season it to your liking. If you want a little bit more salt, add it. Again, I recommend less versus more, because you can always add, as well as additional pepper. So here you go, chicken and dumplings, made in a crock pot. Definitely a wonderful dish to have in the winter time or those cold evenings you come home. Definitely a comfort food as well. So thanks again for tuning in. I hope you enjoy your chicken and dumplings. Remember, share the video and send me comments, okay? I need to know this is working for you. Should I continue doing it or not? So thanks again. Till next time. See you later. Bye-bye.